Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bosk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 133 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my very best to answer them. I just want to apologise to everybody that left a question last week that hasn't made it into this week's video. There were so many questions to choose from, which is awesome, so don't let that deter you. Please leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode, and hopefully you'll be featured. I'm going to be answering a lot of your questions this week, but before we get on to that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, I want to say a big thank you to my latest channel member, Reckless Deck. Sorry, mate, I did forget to put you up on the previous week, but here it is now, so thank you to that. And if anyone wants to become a channel member or Patreon supporter, the links are in the description below. There's a private Discord channel, there's exclusive giveaways, there's early videos, there's all sorts of things that you get when you become a channel member or Patreon supporter. So thank you guys for that, and thank you once again to Reckless Deck. The second thing is, I just want to say a big thank you to Gianni and Greg from Red 5 Designs, because my book arrived. Now this is a miniature guide for the Kenner card backs. Now this is not a book that is designed to be read from cover to cover. This is a guide for you to find out which version of the card back you have. So essentially what you do is you go through the book answering a series of questions depending on your card back, and it'll take you all the way through and let you know what version of the card back you have. It goes through all the different offer stickers and all that kind of thing, and this is an invaluable guide to anybody that likes vintage Kenner Star Wars mint on cards. The guys at Red 5 Designs have currently sold out of copies of this, but they did tell me that they are going to be getting some more printed in the next couple of weeks. So head on over to Red 5 Designs' website. I will leave a link in the description below to those guys so you can check out their book. They of course were the guys behind the Kickstarter for the actual full-on Kenner guide. Now that is not what this is. This is a mini guide to discover which card back that you have. If you did miss out on the Kickstarter for the big book, then there may still be a chance for you to pick that up. So head on over to the website and check out what they have to offer. Joey Pratt says, question for next week. Have you been following Mattel's Jurassic Park Hammond collection? The human figures are a little iffy, but the super articulated dinosaurs look great. Do you think we'll ever see a Blurg or a new Bantha? Why is it that Hasbro is avoiding creatures when Mattel can fill half an aisle with dinosaurs? On the face of it, it does seem very, very strange. And that's why I've got the Tauntaun in front of you here on this backdrop. I really must open that when I've got more space to display it. But I think you're kind of answering it in the question there. So you say that the human figures are a little bit iffy. So it's clear that they obviously care more about their dinosaurs, right? Because I think that's probably more the selling point. Whereas I think Hasbro concentrate more on the figures. Now with the 3.75 inch vintage collection line, a lot of collectors worry about the world building aspects, and I'm one of those people. I would love lots of vehicles and lots of creatures, and I think the answer for it is that unfortunately it's all about the budget, and I think they put all the budget into newly tooled figures, which there aren't enough of every year, and we miss out on some of the creatures. Like, you know, the Blurg, for example, would have been a great creature to have for the Mandalorian. 10 years ago you may have even got the Mudhorn as well. So I think it just comes down to budget, and it's for us in the collecting community to tell Hasbro that, especially fans of the vintage collection, maybe not the Black Series, because maybe the beasts will be a little bit too large, who knows, I don't know, but certainly in the 3 3/4 inch line we want more creatures. And as you say, Mattel seem to be able to pump out dinosaur after dinosaur after dinosaur, and we have got zero beasts since this guy, which was a long time ago. Ryan Burns says, if we see Vader in his TIE Advanced in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, do you think we might have a shot at getting that vehicle in the vintage collection? I think it ultimately depends on how much we see it, if we see it at all. And I really, really hope we do, because that'll be a massive callback to the original trilogy. I kind of think with these series that we don't often get too many space battles. I think the footage that we see is more character based. It's always on a planet or something like that, and maybe the budgets aren't there to do full on sort of battles in the skies. But then again, all of these series always seem to be in an era where there doesn't seem to be like a large empire and a large rebel presence for them to have this massive fight. It seems to be, as I say, more character based, which is unfortunate. But I think it would be great to see Vader in his TIE Advanced in the show. That would be awesome. And of course, whenever something does show up in a TV series, it does make it more likely for it to happen. I mean, I wish they would just do it anyway for the OT. I mean, it's a vehicle that I've always said is missing badly from the vintage collections. I can't say that we'll get it because obviously vehicles and creatures, as we've just talked about, are at a premium. So, you know, let's just keep our fingers crossed for that. Channel member Owen Brown says, great episode. My question for next week is, with your recent video showcasing what we might have had in the vintage collection, do you think we might get a probe droid soon? It recently made an appearance in Kenobi and they could maybe bring one out in a deluxe Kenobi box. Love to know your thoughts. So yeah, the video you're referring to is when I went through that vintage collection Blue Milk book where I showcased all of the items that never made it into production, and the probe droid was one of those. So I think you're talking about the probe droid that we see outside that obviously gives up the location of Kenobi and Leia. I'm thinking maybe about the smaller one that's going around the Inquisitor's base, which that could definitely be more the sort of size that could be in a deluxe pack with Obi-Wan, maybe even Leia. I don't know if they ever get around to doing Leia, but that's probably more the size of a deluxe pack, I think, one of those little ones that's floating around. But absolutely, man, the probe droid would be awesome. They did bring it out in the Force Link line. Could they sort of repurpose that maybe? I don't know. Andy McGlink says, Bossk, question for next week. Since the last episode of Obi-Wan, we got our first live action Purge Trooper. Will we see them in the vintage collection? They did look awesome, did they not? I thought they looked great. And I was having a look at them. It's quite difficult to get a shot of them close up to see what they actually look like. Because from first viewing, I thought they looked a little bit different to the ones that we got in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. And of course, this guy is based off of that. This is the Electro Staff version. So I'm not too sure if they could just repurpose this guy and bring out the Purge Trooper that's in the Obi-Wan show. I think the helmets might be ever so slightly different. Even the Karma might be slightly different as well. The one that came out in the Black Series is much closer to it, of course, because that is the regular Purge Trooper. But even then, I think there is a difference with the helmets. But as I say, it's so difficult to tell. But if it is just as easy as like repurposing this one, then yeah, absolutely, we could see that, no problem. Doug McLeod says, Tim, would you agree that the Vintage Collection modular Death Star playset would put the disastrous HasLab efforts back on track? Each level with a figure per tier would get backers. It certainly would, yeah, I totally agree. I was speaking to some of my mates in the community the other day, and there's going to be a future episode on the SWTVC podcast where myself and some of the guys, we really chat about where the line's going at the moment, and particularly HasLab. And I think I mentioned in that about the HasLabs for the Vintage Collection. You know, maybe they should be separated from all other HasLabs and be called TVCLAB or something like that. That was a joke that I said, but it's quite catchy. TVCLAB, bring them on. Just then we could have our own TVC Labs or TVC HasLabs just for the Vintage Collection, and then the other things that they do in the HasLab realm can be over there somewhere, you know, and we don't really need to take any notice of it, and it doesn't really affect what's going on. And definitely the Death Star would be one of those things that I'm sure many collectors would lap up. We already have loads of the figures. We could do with a new officer, and as you say, a modular thing with different levels. They could really do something great in HasLab for something like that. But, you know, as I said, at the moment, HasLab seems to be spread quite thinly across lightsabers and Black Series. The Vintage Collection needs its own HasLab, TVCLAB, doing Hasbro's work for them. Stuart Holt says, hi Tim, love your content, keep up the good work. Question for next week, with them appearing at the end of the episode 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, do you think we could see a release of the T-47 Airspeeder? This is very much like the question about Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. I'm not too sure if they were in it enough to warrant a release in like an Obi-Wan box or whatever, but potentially, you know, the one that we got back in the Vintage Collection from The Empire Strikes Back, maybe they could re-release that. I don't really think that they were in it enough for them to warrant that, as I say. And also, I've got to say, I didn't think they looked very good. I thought the CGI at that point was pretty awful, if I'm honest, and they looked a bit small as well. I don't know what it was, they just didn't look right, and seeing them there didn't make me go, oh yes, I want a Snowspeeder in the Vintage Collection, I've got to admit. But I think there's other stuff that would come before that. Horror Fan says, question for next week, do you think we could get Mara Jade in the Black Series since we have Luke from Heir to the Empire and Thrawn? I think that's a given, my friend. I think at some stage you will see that, yes. Daniel Coleman says, another smashing good video. I like the great variety of subscriber comments you receive and answer. Possible question for next week, if you would. Have you ever suffered from any form of collector's fatigue? If you have, how did you cope? Or if you didn't, what is it you think kept you from getting it? I've got to say, right now, at this moment in time, I wouldn't call it collector's fatigue, but I'm definitely sort of down a little bit about the vintage collection and where it's going. And this is purely down to the way the line's been treated with the Obi-Wan figures, basically. We're getting 3. Now, I've got to say, we're getting an amazing Darth Vader. Don't get me wrong. The new Darth Vader looks an absolutely phenomenal figure. It's the definitive Darth Vader, without a doubt. And the Black Series, you know, they're getting a kit bash, basically, of the A New Hope one. But I've got to say, you know, when you're only getting 3 figures, the Black Series is getting 9, I think. Then you've got the whole range of retro collection. You're getting some Mission Fleet stuff with an EOP and all that kind of thing. You know, it really sort of, it just gets you down a little bit. But as I say, the way I get through that is the community. I love making videos. I love talking about the figures. And at the end of the day, I think for me, it makes it a little bit easier because I do create content around it. So if I have got a bit of collector fatigue or I'm disappointed about something, at the end of the day, I can come on here and moan about it a bit, can't I? At the end of the day, or get on social media and moan about it. But I think it's short-lived. It does pass because eventually, you know, when I get that Darth Vader in my hand, I'm sure I'll be over the moon with it. But, you know, it's just a bit annoying, that's all. Omar Prado says, question, what do you think about HasLab AT-OT dropship like the one Lego did 12 years ago? That makes more sense for a dream project because they never did anything like that for the 3 3/4 inch figures. 100%, my friend. I'm not too sure if it would be a dream project for everybody because a lot of people don't like the prequel trilogy or whatever, but that thing in Lego is awesome. And in terms of the size and scale, that is what HasLab is for. And that's kind of what I was getting at on last week's video. That is something that would be like, yeah, as you say, like a dream item, like that you're never going to get it any other way except in HasLab. And that would be awesome. Channel member Stephen Novak says, with the Rebel characters being in the new Ahsoka series, do you think the Ghost will also be in it? And wouldn't this be a good opportunity to make it in a HasLab, since it would now be included in new media? Although I want the Sandcrawler. So I think the leaked footage that we saw of the Ahsoka series from Celebration, they were actually based on the Ghost. And I think Rosario Dawson also in an interview talked about being on the Ghost as well. So that it's definitely going to be in it. 100%, because she said it. Is that enough for it to be made into a HasLab? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, I think quite a lot of people have been calling for it. It would be huge because I think I saw somebody say that in terms of scale, it's bigger than the Millennium Falcon. I can't vouch for that. I don't know 100%, but it is a large ship. But it would be cool, wouldn't it? Genko T says, hi Tim, do you think the recent increase in vintage collection dioramas will continue to see bigger and better diorama sets, such as the recently announced Jabba's Palace set? Personally, I'd love to see some more ship interior dioramas, such as the Falcon or the Star Destroyer bridge. Yep, both of those would be cool. I think the Black Series community have wanted the Falcon, like the interior of the Falcon, or certainly the cockpit for their figures and that, which I can completely understand. But in terms of the larger play sets, I haven't heard of anything that's in the works for the vintage collection, but I do know that the smaller ones, the sort of $50, $60 sort of price range ones, those are definitely continuing. I do know of one of those that's scheduled for next year, which will be pretty awesome. So yeah, things are happening, things are coming out, and they seem to go towards the things that they feel that have worked previously. And I think those sort of $50, $60 play sets, they kind of like doing those, don't they? So yeah, but of course, as we've said previously, this is the thing that we're lacking. We're lacking sort of that sized beast, the Blurg, Tauntauns, Banthas. We're missing vehicles, smaller vehicles, that kind of stuff. Christopher Barton says, hey Bossk, question for next week. With the Black Series pipeline reveal of Darth Malak and Bastilla, based on their appearance in the Knights of the Old Republic remake, as well as next year being the 20th anniversary of Knights of the Old Republic, do you think there's any chance TVC will get a Knights of the Old Republic figures like Revan, Malak and Bastilla as well? Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. I think with the anniversary, and yeah, you can look at things that have happened in the Black Series in previous years, and the vintage collection kind of sometimes follows suit, doesn't it? A few years down the line. We've seen it with other figures. So maybe you're onto something there. I've got this guy there. So who knows what's going to happen, but yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll definitely see some of those figures. Dave of the Dead says, hiya Bossk, enjoying the content as ever. Question for next week around some recent Q&As with the Hasbro team from Celebration. Emily alluded to gaining as much feedback from fans as they could, including stats, polls, etc. I know we've had the March Madness event, but is it worth doing
a deeper dive into each film series and getting fans to vote on the top 5 figures for each. Maybe the fan channels like yourself, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Usual Mike, etc. could oversee a film show poll each. Everyone loves a poll, right? Yeah, I think they do, yeah. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Emily did say that. They do sort of social scrape and they look at various websites and social media and things like that to try and understand what the community want. And if you look back at some of the figures that we've had over the last couple of years, you can definitely say that they have taken inspiration from that. But of course, we always want more. But have no fear, my friend. I've been talking to some of my buddies in the community, and similar to what we did in 2020 with the petition and everything, we're looking at ways to do something similar to help push the vintage collection on even further to greater heights, basically. There's so much passion around it. All of us are the same. We all want it to succeed. We all want lots of new figures. And yeah, just hold fire for now, because, you know, news of that will be coming out soon. That's all I can say. But we're definitely talking and we're hoping to do something. Loz44 says, question for next week. Do you think we'll ever get any of the exclusive figures from the Legacy Collection Geonosis Arena 2-packs? I've got to say, I really don't think that's going to happen, no. They can't even get a single figure out from the Legacy Collection. Otherwise, they would have brought out an Ugnaught already. So I really don't understand what's going on there. But no, unfortunately, I can't really see that. Just Capster says, great video, boss. Question for next week. Do you think Hasbro will be more open in asking fans what they want in TVC next? Especially vehicles, for example, the Mandalorian N1 Starfighter or Speeder Bike, Cobb Vanth with his speeder, etc. So similar to what I said for the previous question, you know, we're looking at ways that we can try and sort of push Hasbro in the right direction about what the community want, trying to find out what the community want and then communicating with them as best as we can. Now, in terms of vehicles, I've mentioned, you know, we definitely want vehicles, but there are some vehicles coming, so you don't need to worry about it. I think there is a strong rumour for the N1 Starfighter. I think everyone kind of knows that now. Speeder bikes, we've been going on about the speeder bikes for ages. I certainly have on this channel. Next year's the Return of the Jedi anniversary. If there's ever a year you're going to see one, it'll be next year. And let's face it, it's quite a small vehicle. They can pump one of those out pretty easily. But yeah, Hasbro do claim they know what the fans want, but I think they need a bit of a push every now and then, and that's what we're going to be looking to do. James Bond says, hey boss, question for next week. Now that the droid figures, TVC, have all been released, how likely is it that we'll see Ewok cartoon figs? Also, do you think they would ever make figures from the Ewok films in TVC? Thanks. I don't think they'll ever do the Ewok films. I mean, I tried watching those since they've been on Disney Plus. They are proper awful, aren't they? They're almost unwatchable. In terms of the Ewok cartoon figs, I can definitely see that as a possibility. I think those Droids figures were very successful as far as I'm aware. They seem to go down very, very well with the community. So when Hasbro see something do well like that, then they look for the next thing that's similar. And of course, the Ewoks cartoon, I've put Wicket there because obviously he was the main character from the Ewoks cartoon. Potentially they could do him. They've already got the headdress for him because you do get the green cowl that came with that figure. So you never know how they're going to do these things, whether the retail partner is up for another exclusive in that way. So, you know, but we'll see what happens in the future. Okay then guys, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Don't forget to check out the book on the Red 5 Designs website. It's an absolutely must-have mini guide if you're into the vintage Kenner card backs and discovering which card back that you have in your collection. Okay then guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.